G'day, and welcome to the Pursuit of Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Rosie Burrows, and I'm on a journey to find my freedom so that I can help you do exactly the same. Join me each week as I share the stories of everyday people who have found their own paths to freedom. I'm not going to focus on job titles and accolades because I don't care about that stuff, and neither should you. I want to uncover what truly makes you tick. Who are you when you step away from society's expectations and follow your heart? I still haven't figured it out yet. Have you? Either way, buckle up because it's going to be one hell of a ride. Welcome. Joining us today is Stewart Townsend, all the way in the UK. I'm in sunny Australia. It's daytime for you, Stu, and nighttime here. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks, Rosie. It's actually a little bit sunny here for once.
Unreal. Spring is coming, hey?
Hopefully.
So, Stu, you started off in the corporate world, and then you've kind of, I don't want to give away too much of your journey, but there's been sort of a few different stages, and at the moment you're in Podcast Hawk. You're a co-founder there and CMO. But I was wondering if we could start hearing about younger Stu. What was it like leading up to those corporate days? What was life like for you?
I like that term, let's hear about younger Stu, because that was a long time ago. It was, quite a bit of time ago, but we won't talk about that sort of thing. It's fine. In terms of, I suppose, where I started off, as any 14 to 16-year-old, you're looking... I was the one trying to find the easy job and easy route and such. And I started life working in a garage, and I thought I'll set up a little company called Grindbusters. Ghostbusters was the film of the time, giving my age away. And Grindbusters was like a valeting company. I couldn't drive cars. I was only 14, but I worked in a garage cleaning cars, so I used to get people to bring cars at the weekend and stuff. I thought, this is okay, creating your own little business. It's not too bad, is it? Mm-hmm. Until I realised actually I wasn't charging enough because buying the washing products and everything else was way too expensive. So, hey-ho, that's lessons learned. But actually what happened is I got offered a job there when I left school at 16. And I got offered a job as an apprentice at British Gas in the IT division, which was a miracle. I don't know how I got offered that, but it was a miracle. But of course, British Gas was £5 a week less money and a bus ride there. The garage was a 5-minute walk and £5 more. So I went to work at the garage. So it took me a couple of years to realise that working at a garage in the middle of winter in England is not really it's not the best job in the world. So I decided to make my first career move at 18 and went to go and work at a steel company, basically selling my old cold rolled steel and looking after depots and doing some stuff like that, which was great because what it taught me was, one, do what you're told, but also push back as well. Because if you think something's wrong, then it may be wrong from that side. Which, when you're cutting steel and it's £500 a ton and it's expensive, and you've got an order for £2,000 and you cut it short, you've lost £2,000. It's gone. So it taught me some aspects around that sort of. Even if people are older than you, they don't necessarily know everything is right. But when you're younger, you don't necessarily know everything either. So there's that balance, isn't there? So it was quite an interesting time. Sort of, I was there for 10 years or more. But in that time, I realised I didn't want to sell steel all my life because most of the people in that industry, that's all they did all their life. So I'd met my first wife, one of many. I met my first wife in the industry. She worked for the same company, and we got together. And I decided to go to university and go and get my HNC, my degree, and my master's and everything I needed to go and get a job in corporate. Wow. So I didn't actually get a corporate job until I was 30. I was the old kid on the block. But yeah, it was a bit of a journey to get there, and it wasn't the easiest route. It was like, you can put it to that sliding doors moment. If I would have gone to British Gas and got a job in IT, I could have got into corporate a lot easier. But I went the hard way. But I got where I wanted to be. It just took a long time. But actually, it was really great because I learned a lot on the way. I made some good friends. I've still got friends now from there, and I
Mm-hmm.
made different connections and stuff. But it taught me some lessons around. Um, it's easy going up to the top, but it's your friends who look after you when you fall to the bottom.
Tell me more about that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was. Um, the steel firm was quite sort of old school, shall we say. Um, the managing director sat at the top of the table. Everybody sat in an order, depending on what their position in the company was. And I sat at the end of the table because I was like the young chap. And it was always, as you were sort of building up what you were doing and your role and that sort of thing, you get little snippets and insights. And Keith, who was the MD, still a good friend now. He basically said, there's one thing you need to remember, Stu, is it's really easy to work your way up to the top in any company and sort of get there and crawl your way through and push people out of the way and all that sort of thing. But by doing that, you're alienating everybody. So when you fall from grace, as you will do at some stage, you're going to fall really quickly because there's nobody there to support you. Nobody's going to be there to help you. So always remember, everybody's replaceable. It doesn't matter who you are and what position you are, you're replaceable. So always do the right thing, do it the right way. Don't push people out of the way, be respectful, and also be mindful that we all need to learn. It was like, it was him that supported me in going to university. It was like him that said, I can see that you're bored here, so we're going to pay for you to go and do part-time at uni so you can do your HNC, you can do all this. And at some stage, you're probably going to leave. But in the meantime, we'll pay for you to do that because you can either have a pay rise or that. I was like, well, I'm going to take that. So really supportive. But yeah, it was more of that aspect of, don't forget. And you look at it now, you look at sort of businesses now, and it doesn't matter if you're the CEO, CMO, whatever, you're always replaceable. And in sales, it's like you're replaceable the next quarter. If you've had a bad quarter or bad 2 quarters, you're out. See you later.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really prominent at the moment, isn't it, with all the tech layoffs in the media? Like you really are replaceable. But going
Yeah.
back to your friend Keith, was it?
Yeah.
It sounds like, that's really wise advice. And I imagine that's served you well over the years.
Oh, it definitely has. It's sort of, it keeps you grounded in a way of, and look back. I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago, sort of one of those life reflection type moments of where I'm at now and what we're doing with Podcast Hawk and that sort of thing. And I look back at where I started, and I'm glad I worked in the garage. I have no regrets about the decisions that I made because I've learned something on each step that's helped me get to where I am now. Yeah, I would have liked to have been there in my 30s and been one of the cool kids and run about and stuff, but it's all material things. That's the aspect of that, isn't it? Whereas now it's like, no, it was a good journey to go. Whereas I could have gone and worked at British Gas and in IT and gone and done something different, but I wouldn't have met all the people that I've met. I wouldn't have learned things that I've learned. I wouldn't have gone through that experience, which, yeah, I have no regrets about.
Yeah, which I think is great. I think, for younger people who might be listening, I think it can be really overwhelming figuring out what path to go down. And often we might not be able to go down the path we want to straight away.
Yeah.
But, would you agree that you're a totally different person now to the person perhaps you would be if you started off at British Gas?
Yeah, definitely. I think British Gas, if I would have gone there, I probably would. I wouldn't have been more cutthroat. It's not my character, but I think I would have been a different person in terms of trying to climb up that corporate ladder and be the IT director there or something.
Right.
That isn't me. And you're right about young people. My son, he works in accounts. I don't know what he does. Can never remember. He tells me all the time, but he works in accounts. He's doing his qualifications. But at the weekend, he's what in the UK what's called a special. He's a part-time police officer. So he's a firearms officer, trained, waiting for a position. He's now retrained as a traffic officer while he waits a position to become a fully trained firearms officer. And he still doesn't know what he wants to do. And I said to him, I didn't know what I wanted to do, Jordan, until I was in my 30s or my 40s. or actually in my 50s, I still don't know now because it changes. There is no path, but don't worry
I was
about it.
going to say, do you
Like,
know what you
don't
want to do
yeah.
even now?
No, exactly. It's like, but there is no path, is there? When I was younger, it used to be your path is you go and work at Kellogg's or you go and work for this company and it's a job for life. That doesn't exist anymore. You know, your path can be. I was doing some training in college about 3 or 4 months ago. I do sort of like some work in a local college, and I was saying to the young people there that are in their second year, so don't worry about it. Create your own business if you want to, but don't worry about it. You'll find your way. You don't have to decide. You're 18 or 19. It is. You can change any time now. There is no prerequisite. It's not like you have to go down that path consistently. It just gets a bit. I think they just get told, don't they?
Definitely. Yeah, there's so much pressure on young people. Like, I'm in my early 30s, but I, vividly remember how I felt in high school and all the pressure to choose what I wanted to do. And my sister, she's 10 years younger, and I had to see her go through it. She's 21 now. She still doesn't know what she wants to do. And I said to her, don't worry about it. Neither do I.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people do, but that's the beauty of it, because
Yeah.
you get to discover what you like and what you don't.
And it's about finding something that you enjoy into.
Yeah. I mean, did you enjoy your time in corporate?
Oh yeah, I loved it. And basically, yeah. So when I was 30, I'd got my HNC, I got my degree, I'd got all my qualifications I needed, and it was late. Was it late 90s? I have to do the maths. Yeah, it was late 90s, 2000s when I joined Sun, and the IT and well, basically the economy just like sank like a stone. So I was one of the last graduates to join. So I joined as a graduate. Essentially, everybody else is about 22, 23, or whatever age you come out of university. I was 30, and there's another chap called Jimmy who was 30. We were the old men, basically. We just got abused. But Sun was a great company. It was an amazing company. And for those that don't know, Sun Microsystems was a company born out in the 80s. It was just fun, great technology ahead of its time, but great people as well. We still all keep in touch now. And the only reason I came out of corporate is because that company got acquired and I didn't like working at Oracle. And I didn't. And then I thought, well, there's never going to be another company like Sun Microsystems. So I'll get the next best thing. I'll go and work in some startups instead, because it'll be that same sort of growth pattern around it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, well, where did you go from corporate? So you entered this startup world, and it sounds like that decision was grounded, I guess, in some of your values. Like you realized, okay, the direction Oracle's going isn't, I don't want to be part of that, and you pivoted. So I'm interested, to hear, did that take a while to make that decision? What kind of thoughts were going through your head when you were deciding what to do?
Yeah, so basically I was just finishing, so Oracle had acquired Sun, and my boss at Oracle was fab. It was like, just find your path and see if there's something you like. You've got like a year, and then we're offering packages, so you've got a year to decide. And I tried different things. It just wasn't the same. And in the meantime, I've been talking to some of the companies, because I used to run a startup. I built a business inside Sun working with startups. So I was talking to some of my customers and friends, excuse me. So when I left Oracle, I was finishing my master's. I was doing a master's in social media and psychology, and I finished that. And in the meantime, a chap called Nick Halstead had been taking money into DataSift, and he said, once I've got my last round, I can offer you a job. Can't offer you a job now. But once we get that next round, I can offer you a job. I'm like, what's the job? Well, it's being an adult, basically, because we've got loads of developers, and I want to do the developer stuff with them and have fun. I want you to do the boring stuff around sales, marketing, and channel and business development and all that stuff. It's like, all right, okay. Oh, that sounds like good fun. So after about 6 months, finished my master's, Nick got investment, I started, but it meant, again, I had to move to Reading in the week. And again, it puts different pressures on, doesn't it? But literally, I was so tired. It was a wake-up call about how hard you work inside a small company. Working inside a small business unit in a corporate, I thought was tiring and demanding. Working inside a small company that you're always under pressure, not in a different style of pressure. It's a fun sort of pressure of, right, okay, I don't know, I've got to do a call with Japan. Right, okay, it's 10:30 at night. I'm in bed. I've got to do a demo of the product.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of random stuff like that. But it was, again, it got that feeling back again of working inside some microsystems, that same sort of camaraderie. Everybody wanted to help each other, that whole support. And there was no defined I didn't care about a job title. I just wanted to get on with stuff. So it was literally, I'd be the one ordering the pizza or getting lunch or trying to sort out some crazy go-karting event along with try to build a sales team and developing revenue. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, sounds like a really diverse role. And I'd love to know more about what it was that you really enjoyed about working in a small company or a startup. You mentioned the camaraderie, which I'm assuming it's not quite the same in a larger organization.
Yeah, it was. Inside the small company, we'll start with that sort of point first. It was, you sort of grow with the company. And what I found over the sort of couple of startups that I've worked in, that's the piece that I like. So if I anchor it back, basically at Sun, I started as a systems engineer. I worked with salespeople, sort of acted as their technical resource and helped them sell. But we worked in small business units. So we all knew each other and we knew if we needed something, the right person to connect to go and get something done, in a sense. And that was great. So that was that camaraderie you had there. But it was a little bit different in Oracle. Oracle was a different sort of beast, and that didn't exist. It did exist, but not in the same sort of style that I was happy with. Inside the startup, what I loved about that was every day was totally different. In corporate, you start at the start of the year, you go to a presentation, they tell you what the playbook is for the year, what you're going to do, what the thing is. You spend 2 days in that, literally wanting to pull your eyes out, and you get the deck and it's like, right, okay, it's all about the values and this and the other. Okay, right, what is it this year? Boom. Startup land. You could do that and it'd be ripped apart 2 days later because it's like, no, we're going over here now. And there's still, we still had a plan and we had to deliver against certain things, but every day would be totally different and we could experiment. We had, the freedom from the investors to go and try different markets and different sales techniques and different aspects. But also what I did like in both DataSift and Zendesk was this whole, right, okay, we need to do something. How do we do it? Well, we'll just have to work out how to do it, won't we? There's no, the answer wasn't no. Yeah. Computer says no. It was like, how do we build an event that can get 1,000 people there in 6 weeks' time in the central London that's not going to lose money? Oh, God, really? And it was like, right, okay, so let's find a venue first and let's do this. Let's work out with our partners and our marketing team and how much budget we've got. And we can put a plan together and let's just go for it because it has to work. And it was that sort of thing of like, right, okay, let's just stop everything and let's just make that happen then.
Yeah. And was that the first time you'd ever done that sort of thing?
I'd done large events before or large sort of projects and things before inside corporate land, but more structured because you've got a marketing team and you've got to get sign off and you've got to go through approval. So it wouldn't be we'd do that sort of. When I was doing my startup program, I was like the pizza man of London. I was spending over £1,000. I hasten to add, maybe £2,000 a month on pizza because it was little micro events. So in our office in London, we had a briefing centre, a corporate briefing centre. We could hold, I think, just over about 100 people. So I would host little micro events. And at the time, it was around Ruby on Rails or Twitter, Facebook. They were also coming to market and things. So I would be the host there to make people aware of what we were doing from a technology aspect. So it's literally, right, here's my venue. I'll buy some pizza. You just bring people in. And then they know that Sun can do this. So I was used to being flexible, shall we say, around that sort of thing. But when I was at Zendesk, it was literally Nick, the marketing director there, got asked to put this together. And he's like, we need some partners to put some money in. And we need some partners to be there to beef it up a little bit and stuff. And it's like, right, okay, well, and we didn't have an agency building the event or doing this sort of stuff. It was just us hustling, and it was predominantly his event. I was helping out. It was like, well, well, I'll just help. We'll just crack on, and we'll use it as a chance then, so I could bring my partners together and some of the sales team from their partners, and we'll use it as an anchor point to get them together. And again, it just sort of shows, the same in Datus. If we did some sort of similar hackathon type events where we had people coming in over the weekend to the office building applications on top of the product, it's like, how do we do that? It's like, right, okay, we just make sure we've got loads of pizza, loads of pop, loads of really bad food, an objective, a time, and something they've got to deliver against, and people around that can help them. That's it. And we make it fun. That's all we've got to do. So it was just sort of, I think, if you take anything away from whether it was Sun or DataSift or Zendesk, it was about, there was a can-do attitude, a very positive attitude. Even though you were tired and exhausted, a lot of the time it was like, we can just do this. We can do it. There's a way around to make it happen. Right. Whereas a lot of time in a lot of corporates, what you get is, can't do that because it's not policy, or we need 500 people to sign off and agree with it. Yes. And it stifles innovation. People that innovate, they become Borgs, they become drones, and just like, okay, so January 5th, I've got all my objectives for the year, and by December 24th, I'll have ticked them all off. Okay, done. Right, okay, see you on December 24th then, bye.
Yeah, that sounds a bit soul-crushing, really.
Yeah.
But I love, it sounds like you really got the opportunity to be so creative and problem solve on the go. But there was also a lot of unknowns. And I'd love to know, have you always thrived in being in scenarios where it's unknown? And I know for me, I can find that really stressful. It's exciting, but there's also a level of stress because you don't quite know where you're going. So have you always been able to manage that well, or have you had to pick up skills and mindsets along the way?
I think without acknowledging it, but now looking back, I was the sort of person that would do a project the night before. So, do my...
I can relate.
Yeah. So it's like, do my thesis. Okay, it's 15,000 words with a load of research. That's fine. Yeah, I'll do a little bit. And it's like, it's a week to go. Oh my God, right, okay. And I pull it together. So that
sounds like my sister, yeah.
Yeah. I perform better that way, which does frustrate people. I know it does, because I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. We'll get it sorted no matter what. I know, but I need a plan. I want this. And like, I know, but that's just boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and I do love project management and that sort of side. I'm not very good at building that. I can contribute to it, whereas I'm, like you say, I'm more the thriving of, okay, we need to do this. So like my car show is in 6 weeks time. 6 weeks time, sorry. So we get about 7,000 people there, about 200 cars. We have health and safety checks and all that sort of thing. And this year we've got less volunteers than ever. So I'm sort of spinning plates around that, acting as trade and sponsor and sales, and it's all for charity. We're all volunteers. But I'm quite enjoying it again because I'm just doing it on the fly. It's like, right, okay, we've got 100 cars signed up now. I need another 100 cars. How am I going to get them? Okay, well, I'm reaching out to every car club that I know. I'm doing my normal thing. I'm on car shows, on podcasts. I'm doing this, that, and the other. And whereas a lot of people look at it and go, we need a plan for this, really, don't we? It's like we have got a plan. It's just sort of, it's in my head. It's in my head.
And it's more flexible and adaptive, which I think is well suited to the startup world. And it sounds like working in that space really allowed you to lean into your strengths. You just work so well under those conditions, which is great. But you mentioned this car show you have coming up in 6 weeks. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's called Pendle Power Fest. So Pendle is a part of Lancashire. It's been going, it's its 10th anniversary this year, and we're aiming to raise £10,000. We normally raise about 8,000. We support a local hospice, Pendleside Hospice, and Northwest Air Ambulance. So it's run predominantly, there's four volunteers, and then another chap ropes in his daughter and son as well to help out. And so literally we hire a college, their car park that can hold roughly about 200 cars. We get people to pay £5 or £10 admission to come in for cars, and all that money goes to charity. And it's a great day if it's sunshine. Not so great when it rains, but it's still good. And every year we do that. So we volunteer, I don't know, God, it feels like it's like 50, 100 hours plus to make it all happen. But it's just a lot of work. But it's good because I enjoy cars. That's like my hobby type of thing. So it's nice to get a range of cars from the 1900s through to the latest supercars coming through. And then we have like model railways, scale electric, stuff like that as well. So, but again, really, ideally, we used to have somebody that managed that from a project side. And yeah, I'm not going to spend the time doing that project management. It's literally, I know that we've got to sell 200 cars. Right, okay, boom, that's one element. We need to get some trade and sponsors in. That's another thing. I'll let everybody else take care of like managing the gate and the health and safety side because that's our skill set. I don't need to worry about that. But yeah. So I spend hours and any time that I get to make that happen. But definitely, again, using some of the sort of skills from working in startups and different companies of hustling, essentially, managing time, but hustling to make things happen quickly, and I suppose pivoting a little bit on occasion.
So it sounds like you have a real interest in cars, and raising money for a hospice is such a worthwhile cause. How did you get involved in this event initially? Because it sounds like you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, so I've been involved for about 6 years now. It was predominantly, I'd gone to the show. It's one of those things, we have the same problem now. Literally, it's the same day every year. It's the last Sunday. It's the last bank holiday of May.
Right.
But I live in the village where it is, and I didn't even know it was on. So I'm driving past, see it was like, pull in, they go, oh, well, you can't come in because we're a fixed car show. You have to buy a ticket.
Right.
So I was like, all right, okay. Well, I'll park up and I'll come have a wander around. So I was just having a conversation like, well, if you like cars, we're always looking for volunteers. Like, I do like cars, and what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Oh, not a lot really. 6 years later, it's like, yeah, it's one of those that it's good, it's worthwhile because we get to, go around the hospice or with the air ambulance, we get to go and see, where the money goes to, in a sense, what we've done, what we've helped raise and what we've helped support. So it's great. But also we get to see some lovely cars as well, motorbikes, and meet some nice people and such. And then again, it's sort of if it's a really sunny day, it's a lovely day in an event with all the people there and children as well, enjoying themselves. So it's a nice, worthwhile thing. As well.
On many fronts, by the sound of it.
Yeah. And it just helps. Well, it just helps out, doesn't it? It's payback, isn't it? It's like, there you go. I'll put something good back in that I can do, and I get enjoyment from it as well. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And having had my mother in a hospice, like, I really appreciate the work that they do, and it's a service that's just so needed.
It is.
And if you can help out a service like that whilst also having fun, like, that's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think we were saying before we started, I'm not very good at manual labour. So actually, if I had to go around painting or doing something like that, I'd be exhausted. Whereas this is more of like, it's still tiring, but it's enjoyable tiring. It's a different sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of enjoyable tiring, when you were talking about working in the startup space, it sounds exhausting, but it also sounds very high reward. So can you share, like, how did you manage that? Did you ever reach burnout, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I did reach burnout. I've been divorced twice. So basically, and again, not through the companies, but just my own sort of determination to work. So like Data Sift, that I lived in Reading, which is 200-300 miles away from where I live at the moment. So I'd spend my week down there, come home at the weekend, and I'd be exhausted because you're putting so much energy and passion into it that you get to a point of, I'm just so tired I can't even think. And then when you try and take a holiday, you can't take a holiday from a startup because there's not enough resources around that. So you can, but I'm just not the sort of person who would be like, leave things alone. It's like, oh, how things are going, what's going on. It takes me a week to detune. But in Zendesk, I was there, I think 3 years or so. And basically gone through IPO. I'd built out my channel team. We were doing millions in revenue. But I got to a point of I just can't go to London anymore. My second wife had said I don't want this anymore. I don't want this life of you're there, I'm here, and we see each other at the weekend and we're exhausted. And my son was like 15 at the time, just going through his teenage stage as well. So she was having to help him grow up and go through that sort of pain point. And it was just literally, I can't do this. And I was quite lucky because a position inside Zendesk where actually I'd got some share money out of that, and it was like, right, okay, so there's some buffer going on there, and because I was getting divorced, I could sell the house. I didn't need this house anymore that we had that was ridiculously expensive. But it was just I'd got to that point of I don't like this anymore, and also the company, the way it was growing, was getting to that point where the camaraderie wasn't there anymore as such. It was more of can't help you. That's not my job. I don't get paid for that. That's not my objective. And it was growing large. And I was like, now's the time just to step back a bit and see what I want to do and literally downsize, not have to think, oh my God, I need to earn X amount of money to pay for this mortgage and everything else that we have that's like sort of material things. And that was about 5 years or so ago. I lose track of time. That was 2017, 2016, maybe, a lot longer then.
Right.
But then I made some more mistakes. But it was a time of, as we do. But I really enjoyed the time at both DataSift and Zendesk. It was great. I loved it, and I would never change that. But it got to that point of I'm tired. It was like I can't keep doing this traveling thing. I'm not enjoying it as much anymore, and I don't have time to do anything else. I was so wound up about everything. It was literally, I'd lost my mojo. It just wasn't fun anymore, and I didn't want to then leave and then go and jump into another company and do the same thing, because it'd be the same. Like, go and work in London or do this, and I don't want to work in London. I live in Lancashire. I want to do something around here.
Yeah. And for those of us who aren't in the UK, how far roughly is the commute from Lancashire to London?
So by train, it's, door to door, it's about, for me, it was 3.5 to 4 hours to get there. So, a lot of the time I'd be flying out from the airport, though, I had a European team, so I'd be flying out from the airport. Or, like I say, getting up at 5:30, getting train at 6:30 to get in the office roughly about 9:30 or so, 9:30, depending on the tube on the other end, and then spend the week there, and then get home about 9:00 on Friday night, in between doing sales calls and everything else.
So and it takes its toll, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even though you're on a train and you still try to do some work, that's still tiring itself, because there's lots of noise and everything's going on. You just have one of those weeks. I just want to go home and have my tea and just chill. Yeah, it's not round the corner. And even where I live now, I was doing some work in Manchester. That could be like an hour and a half to drive into town to go and do some stuff, which is a lot easier. Whereas again, I'm just getting lazy now.
Well, why should you have to do that if,
No, exactly. It's like I now have a choice. If I want to do that, I can do. If I want to go, I'm going to go to London for the podcast show. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because it's great. I'll go and spend some time there, and I'll go and see some old friends. But I'm not forced to have to do it on a routine and do it weekly, daily, whatever. Yeah.
And I guess at the beginning, the trade-off of all that time away and the commute was worth it, because it was such an enjoyable job for you and exciting.
Oh yeah, it was.
And then by the very nature of startups, they don't stay in that phase forever, do they? And then, you reach that tipping point.
And that's why when I'd left Zendesk and sort of going down that journey, made some mistakes, but one good thing that came out of it is I set up a little consultancy, and I could do all the nice things but not be there for the long term. I could go in and help them do things that I knew I had knowledge about, and then get out and go, see you later, bye, sort out your internal politics now and do all your stuff about growth, but I'm not involved. Bye. See you later. I don't have to worry about that. So that was fun.
Yeah, sounds like you get all the best bits, all the bits you liked about startups, and then could kind of leave the rest of it. So what gave you the idea of going into consultancy?
So when I left Zendesk, sold the house, rented this little space for 6 months, 5 years later, And essentially, madly enough, because I was going through a divorce and I didn't have my little guiding light to tell me not to be stupid, my wife was really good at that. I put some money into a furniture shop, which was 100 miles away. Don't do that. Don't do that. Ridiculous. I put a big chunk of money into a blockchain cannabis crypto company that was some friends of mine that had done some work for. I was actually doing some small contracting work for the local council here around digital innovation. So essentially, I was like, right, okay, I've lost all my money and I haven't really got a lot of backup and I've been a bit stupid. So what do I do? Well, for 20 or 30 years, whatever we'll say 20, that sounds a lot better, 20 years, I've been working with companies, helping them build indirect sales team and channel and sales through what we term as resellers. So why don't I take the good bits of that? So when I joined Zendesk, it was the whole thing of, yeah, we've got all the stuff that you need. And then you join the company, it's like, no, we ain't got any of that. You've just got to get on with it and just, we're a startup. We're only 250 people. Just get on with it. It's like, right, okay. So I thought, well, there must be other companies around there that need that type. They don't want to commit to hiring somebody, but they want to look at selling through third-party resellers. So I just tested the market a bit and got a couple of customers and some people that I knew from Zendesk got me some customers. And I was like, oh, it's quite good. I'm just telling them stuff that I know already. I don't have to worry about the internal politics. I'm helping them grow and I'm getting paid. And yeah, I just carried on doing that for a while. It's like, yeah, that'll pay the way around that. And that sort of led to, I've been part of this mastermind group for this sort of private forum type group called the Dynamite Circle for a long time. And I worked with some companies in there. And one of them I had some long conversations with was Ray, who my co-founder from Podcast Hawk, who was looking to try and drive sales of his language business through partners. So that's sort of technically how we've been in the same room, but we've never technically met each other, even though we're the founders of a software company that's been going a couple of years. That's how we met, through my original consultancy. The consultant business was really great because it gave me the freedom of, I can go and do something I enjoy, I can get paid some money for it, and actually not, I can learn as well as I'm going through, and I can work with these smaller companies in the exciting time, that sort of growth time where they're being dynamic. But also, I don't have to just bring them stuff from consulting from the channel. It's about, here's what not to do. Here's what we did at Zendesk or at Datasif that didn't work. Here's some of the mistakes that I've learned. Don't do this. Please don't do that, or don't do the other. So it was great.
Did you find it was a bit easier to keep that work-life balance in check when you were consulting?
Yeah, most definitely. Well, yes and no, because with consulting, you have to take the work when it's there and you put yourself through, I suppose, over demands, because it's literally, right, okay, I need to be working 7 days a week in a sense, or a lot, because, around the corner, you may not have some work for a couple of months or whatever time. And then obviously when COVID hit, everything just dropped out straight away. So literally I had been doing that. I've been sort of going, right, okay, I need to have X amount of money. I'm not going to make that mistake again. And invest in stupid things. And that's what I did. I built up a buffer around that side. So there were times where I was just stressed, but in a good way stressed, in terms of, like, I can manage this, but it's a lot going on. And then it's like, right, okay, now when there's downtime, I can go and play with my cars, or I can go and do some stuff that I enjoy. I can go and do some nice stuff, not this constantly where you're in a sort of startup and you're on a paid salary, where it's literally, even when you're on holiday, it doesn't stop. You can't manage it. You have no control over it. Whereas working for yourself, even in Podcast Hawk, it's like, I've got loads of stuff going on this morning, and then this afternoon I'm going to the unit and I'm going to go and try and get some oil leaks sorted out of my car again. I'm going to do that because I've got a choice. It's like, I don't have to tell anybody I'm doing that. It's like, no, I've done what I want to do, because what I'll do is I'll probably catch up on some work tomorrow when it's Saturday and maybe I've got some downtime then. So
consultancy sounds like it had all of the best bits, your favourite bits from working in the startup world. And whilst there were other pressures and stresses because you weren't always sure when the work would come. I think overall it really sounds like you got a lot of joy from that. And I think there's a lot of people now that are curious about dipping their toe in sort of doing their own thing, but are a bit scared. What would you say to those people who are just really on the fence and don't know what to do, but deep down they've just got this itch to give something a go? Would you have any advice for them?
You know, my path was sort of a bit different because it was sort of driven by what happened in life, in a sense. I didn't choose to do consulting. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I had an itch. But I really enjoyed it and found, it's definitely for me. And it's funny because I am talking to some people at the moment who are in that same vein. They've got a full-time job, they enjoy it, but they feel that they're missing something. But they've got that family commitment, you know, mortgage, house, all the sort of general sort of stuff. And what I've said to them is, why don't you just try it as a bit of a side hustle? You know, try it out, work with some clients, whether, you know, work at the weekend, engage, or talk to your boss and say, look, I want to experiment with this because I'm a bit frustrated around it. Like when I was working at the steel firm, it was, I want to go back to uni. I want to do some other stuff. I was open about it and they supported me. It's like anything in life, isn't it? It's, if you don't try it, you feel you've missed out, and it may be the right or the wrong thing around that. But you need to go through that itch, and it could just literally be talk to some existing customers and help. What I used to do at Sun, it wasn't paid work, but I'd, you know, mentor's a bit of a wonky word, isn't it? But with some of the startups, they want someone that's a bit older to tell them all the stuff that they're doing is right or wrong. So it's like, you know, mentoring. You know, you can do that as a consultant with people without getting paid. And experiment is, you know, could I be a coach? Could it be a sales coach? Could it be a marketing coach? Could it be a mentor? And you can do that again in the guise of your full-time job and see, oh, would I enjoy doing this? Because it sounds really great, but actually you may get a bit bored. So I'd say to anybody that's looking at it, go and look at ways to go and experiment, because it may not be you. You may be, you're really good at a full-time job and you love it. When you go and work for yourself, you can't cope with those stresses of, I've got to get, you know, in one hand, I've got to keep getting this work in. I've got to find new work over here. Do I grow my consultancy and hire people? And do I go like an agency model and I've got more headaches around that? Or do I just keep on doing what I enjoy in my job and go through that career path around that? It depends. Again, do you like taking risks or not? Because it can be, you know, it is risky. Once you're down that path.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love what you were saying about experimenting, because I think one of the worst things you can do is just get caught up in, oh, what if, all these what ifs. You're just going to have to at some point take some action. And I think your advice about just, you know, maybe doing it as a bit of a side hustle and experimenting in that way is quite a safe way to do things. Because like you say, it is risky and you do need a certain risk appetite. Would you say you're someone who is risk averse?
Oh, yes. Now, definitely, yeah. Having gone through... Yeah, and when I say risk averse, I suppose risk averse in terms of making investments and financially around that sort of stuff.
Right.
I won't take the risk because I'm 52 now, and as you get older in life, you get, I can't remember what the term is, but basically you can't earn as much. So in your 30s or your 40s, you can take more risks because you've got a chance of making that financial risk back up again. Whereas in your 50s, it's harder. I couldn't be employed. Nobody would employ me now. I couldn't get a job to save my life, is one thing. So I have to make my own destiny. So I can put somebody on the lottery tickets, marry a very rich lady, or just go down a route of trying to make some money. But my time span to make that money is reducing quicker than obviously somebody in the 30s who can go, yeah, I've lost everything, but I can start again, and I can still get it all back again. So I am less risk verse in that sort of aspect. So again, with Podcast Hawk, we're building that business up, get it to a point where it's self-sustaining, it's generating loads of revenue and take salary out and such. But that's still a risk for me because I've stepped away more from my consulting and not taking consulting clients to put more time to grow that business. So yeah, that is a risk, but I'm still very risk averse. It's still a managed balance of this has to work. It's a bit like when I was, with Zendesk or Datasif. It's got. I know it will work, but it's got to work because I'm putting more commitment into that, spending less time trying to find new consulting clients.
And I guess your answer surprised me a bit because leaving you built up this consultancy for, I think you said last time we spoke, about 4 years. You built that up and it was quite successful. And then you've left that for a startup, which to an outsider like me, it seems like that's a huge risk. So I'm wondering, can you share with us that transition? How did this happen? What was that decision like? And how did you, in your mind, kind of, I guess, think about mitigating the risk you were taking on?
So like I said, sort of, me and Ray have not physically met still. And we were, having some conversations and generally talking, and we came up with we were talking about podcasts, essentially. And Ray wanted to get on podcasts to promote his language business, and he saw guest podcasting as being that route to go. And when I was at Datasif, I set up this organisation called Big Data Week, which I sold, which was the biggest global gathering of data nerds. We love data going. So I came at it. I wanted to look at podcast data and what was the impact of being a guest on the show from, again, because of the social media and psychology, sort of that social media metric base and the psychological aspect. And we were just chatting away. And Ray said, well, I've actually just set up this company. Come and have a demo of it. It's a bit raw. It's called Podcast Hawk. I was like, oh, great. And I had to go and I accessed it. I was like, well, he said, it's just me. So I've got my language business. And Ray likes to do multiple things at once, lots of big projects and stuff. I'm like, well, I'm interested in that because I was going to do this. So we had that conversation. Well, why don't you come and join me? We'll work out some model that works. And that was about 18 months ago. So what I've done over time, I've gradually put more time into Podcast Hawk and reduced time in consulting and kept it going a little bit, obviously, to pay bills and do stuff. But over this year, committed into Podcast Hawk as in, right, I'm deciding this is the route we're going. I totally believe in it. I know it's the right way to go. What we offer as a product and the service to market is amazing. So I'm in. And yeah, I suppose it does look risky, but over the consulting side, I've built up a buffer of time that I can pay my bills. I live quite, I know I talk about cars and stuff, but I live quite frugal in a sense. I live on my own. I don't have to worry about my son's growing up. He's not going to college or university fees. So I've scaled back my outgoings so that I can do this aspect and put the time and energy into it and raise. He's more been funding it than I can. I'm funding it from time and putting more time into it to grow out the opportunity. So, yeah, there is risk in it because if it all goes wrong, the backup plan is I have to go back into consulting, but I have to build that back from scratch again. Start from zero, basically.
It sounds like you're fairly good at managing risk, though, because you didn't drop everything and do Podcast Hawk. You were saying you slowly sort of have wound that down and just have little bits going. So, and you're mindful you need a bit of that runway and you're thinking about, okay, if it all goes to shit, here's my backup plan, which I think is important to think about. But, I can tell that you're really passionate about Podcast Hawk and that you believe in it, which, you need that to be able to be in a risky situation like that. But can you share with us, what is Podcast Hawk?
Yeah, really simply, it's basically a way of automating appearances on podcasts as a guest. And it's one of those areas, so podcasts in general as audio is growing. Obviously, people listen to this. But as a guest, it's sort of an unseen aspect of what the benefits are. And me and Ray came in from, like I say, from different angles. But what we do as a software product is automate the research and the outreach of getting onto shows like this. So rather than having to go to Google or iTunes, etc., and try and find a podcast, and then you realise, I found 10 podcasts really good. Boom, 5 of them I haven't had a show for the last 2 years. Right, okay, I'll go back to researching again.
Yeah.
So we help automate all that aspect. And then when it comes to emailing out the host, we have the host details that we've got, and we have like a MailChimp inbuilt MailChimp, so a campaign tool, so that automates that all the email for you with templates, so you don't have to do any of that. So what would take normally hours and hours of work, we can do that in less than 15 minutes. Or I'll say the software can do it in less than 15 minutes. So
yeah,
it's great.
I mean, that's a huge value proposition.
It is. And that's why, for me, and for Ray as well, but for me, it's like, if you're a business and you want to promote yourself or personal brand, or even, generally try and find people that have been on podcasts that you want to talk to, we help with all of that. And if you're an agency or an individual, so it's just got different scenarios and use cases against it. And we are, I don't know if translates well, we eat our own dog food in terms of, I use Podcast Talk for our marketing because I reach out to podcasts to appear on podcasts to talk about guest podcasting. So, which is great. And also I use it to appear on car shows as well. So it scratches in it.
That's quite handy.
You have to believe in something and be passionate about it. And you're willing to take some risk for that to make it happen. Because otherwise, if you don't, there isn't the energy or the impetus there. It's like, why did I get up this morning? Because I wanted to be on your podcast and come and talk to you and such like that, and go and do some software and go and promote it and things like that. Otherwise, it's like, it's just some stuff I've got to do. No, you need to have that bounce. And I'm not a morning person by any means. So.
Oh dear. Neither am I, actually. Can you share what is it that keeps you going? Because I've never been involved in a startup or been a co-founder or anything like that, but I imagine that it's really tough, and there's some days it just feels too hard. So what keeps you going?
Yeah, I think most days it's too hard because, and again, until we get to a point where we have a team and such like that, for me, like I was saying earlier, I'm spinning multiple plates as Ray comes on and does more transitions out of his old company, similar to it, and he comes on and does more. But it's that, I think what keeps me going is new things and stuff that I can do and experiment, and then talking to customers. So I've got a call after this. I've got a demo with a customer that's in Zimbabwe, who's an agency out there. And later on tonight, got a call with Pat Flynn and Matt talking about Podcast
I'm a huge
Talk.
Pat Flynn fan.
And it's just so varied, and that keeps you going because you get great feedback around that. Whereas, when you're in Zendesk or Oracle or Sun, you were sort of detracted. You speak to customers and they could give you feedback, but you couldn't do anything about it. Hey, it's something like when we were doing the challenge and somebody said about the search function. I went back to our CTO and we made the change last week and we pushed it. Done, great. It's that sort of thing. Amazing. So for me, it's just being able to see that growth and direct that growth and think, we did that. We made that happen, which is great. And go and talk about it as, when I worked at Sun, I was dead proud of going out and talking about Sun and wearing my Sun t-shirt or whatever. Same with Podcast Talk. I go and talk about Podcast Talk. It's like, what is it? And I've got my brand on, and I'm proud of it. So, I think it's like building a house. I can't build a house to show my skill set and stuff, but if I can help build this software company and help people along the way, and again, give something back, that keeps me going.
No, that sounds amazing. And I can just hear that you believe and are passionate about this. And I think it's amazing. For me, I'm just starting my podcast, and I've had a little dabble behind the scenes and in Podcast Talk, and it's phenomenal. Because prior to that, I was trying to go out and, like you say, you're searching through Apple Podcasts or Googling things, and it's just, honestly, it's a waste of time and very frustrating. And
It is, and that's what we used to do. That's where we started. It was like, oh, it's Sunday afternoon. I'll do this. 5 hours later, oh, I've got a list of 10 podcasts that I may have some email addresses on,
yeah,
and it's just like, really, and then you just don't do it. You're like, and then you go in the sort of two-sided
exactly.
marketplaces, but you're hoping that somebody finds you as a guest and wants to book you. But that's then down to you, like you, Rosie, as a host, going to do that work to go and find your guests. It's like, well, I ain't got time for that. So why am I doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's genius. And I think it's a great way to build community as well. Like, I'm someone who's really passionate about surrounding myself with exciting people who do exciting things and hearing stories. And I think, going on other people's podcasts is a great way to learn about what other people are up to and form new relationships and connections around the world. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, if anyone's curious about Podcast Talk, where can they go to find out more?
So we'll have some links to share, but podcasthawk.com. You'll find me on there, Stewart at podcasthawk.com. We're all over social. Just come and ask away. And funny enough, I'm just building out some content now into a little small community because, again, I want to get it to a space where people are sharing their experiences and how they've got different guest appearances and how that has appeared and some of the templates they've used. But also just, again, it's like, what have they learned from it? How are they leveraging it? What's the benefit? And it's not a one-sided direction. It's about what is the host getting from this as well, and what's our audience getting. When we talk to clients and we talk about this, it's like you can't just send an email to a host and appear because you're Stewart from Podcast Hawk. You've got to have a story. You've got to have some value because it's not them. It's the audience. It's the audience are listening in because they want to learn or gain something. If you can't give that, just don't bother, honestly, because it's just not, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, I think you have to lead with value, don't you? Like, if you're not delivering that value, then, like you say, don't bother.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of the podcast thing, I heard that you're on a mission to appear on 100 podcasts this year. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so it's the eat your own dog food syndrome again. So I set myself a challenge this year. Ray had set himself a challenge when he first set up the company up to be on 50 podcasts, so he's done that. And I'm not competitive, but I want to beat Ray. So I'm on for 100, which I'm flagging behind on the first quarter because we've had some other aspects that we've been doing around sort of the podcast challenge and that sort of thing. I'm now geared up for this quarter to start accelerating that. So literally using Podcast Talk and reaching out. And again, not just going to promote the tool, but to go and share knowledge and such. So whether it's on car shows or sales shows or whatever it is, it's that challenge. But also, again, we live in a society now where it's sort of, we've come out of that space and now it's like, I can go and talk to people. I can go to events. I can go and engage again. And podcasts are a great way to do that. Not in a physical sense, but just to kickstart that off and have some conversations and go, so what's happening in Australia? What's going on over there? What's happening in APAC? What's happening in the US? It just seemed like we were quite contained for a while, whereas now it's like, no, I want to know what's happening everywhere. So I'm using it as a way of sort of, again, not just European, but let's go in the sort of wider outreach of podcasts on a geographic basis. That's the more exciting thing for me. So see where the emerging markets are.
Yeah, sounds really fun. And so how many podcast episodes have you been on this year so far?
I've only been on 15 up to now, so I'm behind.
Only?
So I need to start pushing.
I mean, you say only 15, but that's still a huge amount, and I'm sure you'll be able to pick up momentum because whilst you're not competitive, I'm sure you'll be great.
There's a target. I'll be there still, try to get them sorted before the end of December, most definitely.
Oh, well, Stu, on that note, we'll wrap up. I just want to say a huge thank you. It's been great to chat and learn a bit about your life story and what you're doing at Podcast Hawk. And before we finish, is there any sort of take-home message you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think. Well, again, thank you for inviting me on. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. But I think, from a takeaway, and I think we've touched upon this a couple of times, is if you're looking to explore consultancy, or you're looking to explore working in a smaller company, or you're looking at that, then yeah, have a bit of a plan around it. But depending where you are in your sort of life, time, and sort of commitments, you need to go for it at some stage, because otherwise, what will happen is you'll look back and have some regret, or not, but
Mm,
you'll look back and go, "Oh God, I wish I would have done that. Why didn't I do that?" At least if I made a mistake
mm.
and I failed, doesn't matter. You've done it. You've ticked your box.
You've
So I'd
done
say,
it. Yeah.
look at it. Put some risk plan together if you want to around that sort of thing. Have some buffer, or yeah, just go for it. But at least you can say then I've done
Yeah.
that aspect and enjoyed it. And yeah, working in a small company has its pros and cons. Working in a big company has its pros and cons as well. Until you experience
Mm,
that, you don't
mm.
know. So yeah, give it a go.
Well, exactly. You don't know if
Yeah,
you don't try.
exactly,
Just go
exactly.
do it. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, Stu. It's been great.
Hey, no, thanks for the invite. It's been great. It's yeah, revive some good memories and some good times. But yeah, thanks, Rosie.
If this episode resonated with you at all, could I please ask that you share it with a friend who you think could get value from it? And whilst you're doing that, make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss another episode. And whilst you're following or subscribing, please leave us a rating, preferably 5 stars, and also a written review. Doing each of these things is going to help this podcast reach more people and impact more lives, which is, at the end of the day, is what we're here to do. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Remember, you matter, you're worth it, and you are so, so capable. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.